新年快乐，新年好，大家好 ，Happy New Year. Today we're going to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Small Talk Circles, affectionately known across university campuses as STC. It's not easy to get to where we are today. We survived the coronavirus pandemic, and starting with 10 students in 2011 at the University of Hong Kong. Today, STC is 6,000 strong with 17 tertiary institutions being permanent members of this little club. We have monthly tea receptions, okay, where we serve food, great food and drinks, and we don't charge a dime. Everything is free here at STC. Okay, at the beginning it's difficult. We survived 20 sessions, I believe it's 20 sessions, right? We had no money, no external financing support, and it practically used up all my hard-earned savings. Just kidding. But after the second year, money start coming in. We have multinational organizations, wealthy individuals, banks, organizations not belonging to the community. They all come in to support us. So we're pretty excited about the development of STC, and therefore, 10 years later today, we're still here, we're still kicking around. We're still doing things for the university students. Now, today, we're going to talk about the journey. The journey, as I said earlier, is difficult. But however, with the support of 17 tertiary institutions, the academic circle, wealthy individuals, multinational organizations, we're able to get the STC message across. Now, what is STC? I'm not going to waste your time here. I want you to go out tonight and Google and find out what we are and what STC is all about. Now, tonight's program is about 30 minutes. To start with Serena Dai. Serena Dai, a 2016 Hong Kong SAR Rhodes Scholar. And she got a full scholarship studying at the University of Oxford. And Serena will tell us tonight about her experience in Oxford. Okay? Now after that, actually I reversed the order, right? The keynote speech, the keynote address, and the wrapping comments, if you wish, okay? Closing remarks, okay? Will be delivered by Bernard Chan, the Honorable Mr. Bernard Chan. And Bernard Chan doesn't need introduction. Everybody in Hong Kong knows Bernard Chan. And he's the convener of the Hong Kong SAR Government Executive Council. And he's a very good friend of mine for over 20 years. He's also very supportive of small talk circles, obviously. He donated some personal cash, money, when we actually needed quite badly. That was many years ago, and he did that. Tonight, he's going to deliver a 20-minute keynote address at the end. As I said, I'm going to reverse the order, right? So after that, is nothing. Now normally, at our monthly tea receptions, we would bring out, have food and drinks and chit chat, rub shoulders with the big boys, students and all that. But tonight, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we're not having any of that. But it's okay. We will get back to the program, the regular program, when this thing subsides a little bit. However, the last 3 or 4 months or so, we did not have any evening programs. However, we do have hiking. Our camels, meaning student volunteers, they would go out to different parts of Hong Kong, the Peak, Lai Ji Wall. The next week, we're going to go to a place called Hong Kong Geo Park. Things like this. We're going to go camping. We're going to go hiking, to keep this STC spirit going as far as we can go and as far as we can do. So thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all a healthy, happy 2021. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Phil, for the welcome address. Hi, friends of STC. I'm Serena, an STC alumni and a 2016 Hong Kong Rhodes Scholar. So I just finished my DPhil in zoology at the University of Oxford, and I'm currently working as a postdoc in the Institute of Zoology, Chinese Academy of Sciences in Beijing. I'm extremely honored to be invited to prepare this video in celebration of the 10th year anniversary of Small Talk Circles. And I feel it's time to kind of reminisce my first STC event in the last winter of my undergrad at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So I had rarely been to events where students from all these different universities would be present, and I had a great time chatting with people from a variety of backgrounds, so from biomedical engineering to finance. And looking back, I had a great opportunity to practice introducing my research to people in different fields, and I learned a lot about what other people were doing. And so far, it's been 4 years, and really looking back since this event, it's been great to know that Phil and others have been keeping these events going, even in difficult times like the pandemic. So Phil has invited me to share a bit of my Oxford experience, and I think it makes sense to tell you why I decided to go to Oxford, and why I decided to do a DPhil in Oxford. So here, DPhil is the Oxford word for a PhD. First, I went for a degree in molecular biotechnology when I entered CUHK. This course focused on biological molecules and technology people employed to study them. So one of the professors at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Dr. Lam, was extremely interested in DNA and what had happened during the course of soybean domestication. And one of his major goals was to figure out how to breed these soybean plants, and basically how to use molecular biology to solve practical problems in the world. And this basically led me on to an interest in academia. So I was interested in doing research before meeting Dr. Lam, but I didn't really know which specific area I wanted to focus on. And doing lab work with Dr. Lam's team really influenced me to pursue a PhD in molecular evolution. And I wanted to do a PhD because I realized I loved asking questions about DNA, and trying different methods to test my hypotheses. So when I applied to Oxford, I decided to go for a DPhil in the Department of Zoology, where I took up a project focusing on the genome of the fat sand rat Samamus obesus, a rodent with some very weird genes. So sand rats are a common rodent that are found in desert areas around the Middle East and North Africa. So in fact, they have a close relative called the Mongolian jerd that is often sold as pets. So when researchers tried to keep these sand rats in the lab, they noticed that some of these animals became very obese and had very high blood glucose levels. It turned out that these animals were very prone to diet-induced diabetes, and DNA sequencing of the sand rat revealed lots of weird genes with changes that aren't found in any other vertebrate animal. So my DPhil project focuses on finding out what these weird genes and their unusual protein products do. Aside from the really exciting research, another amazing aspect I found of becoming a biologist is having so many opportunities to meet people from different places. And these people have all these different research interests. So whether it happens in the department kitchen or at a conference venue. During my DPhil, I've had many opportunities to travel to different places. For example, Strasbourg, France, Heidelberg, Germany, and I could talk to many different fellow researchers at these meetings or share ideas with different school students. So whatever your background is, I have to say that studying molecular biology is definitely not about working just in the lab. Communication skills that I practiced at small talk circles were put to good use outside of the lab too. So, as you may know, the Rhodes Scholarship gives approximately 100 young people around the world a chance to study, meet, and develop lifelong friendships in Oxford. As a Rhodes Scholar, I spent lots of my time in Rhodes House and amongst Rhodes Scholars from all over the world. Scholars are really encouraged to organize and host their own events, which can be anything from a 10-person afternoon tea chat about poetry to a 100-person event with an invited speaker. During my stay at Oxford, I had the idea to organize a spring festival event in Rhodes House, given that traveling home wasn't really possible because of how term times are structured in Oxford. And I decided to celebrate with the Rhodes community. So organizing an event for 90 people really wasn't easy, and I learned a lot about negotiating and event planning. But in the end, I was happy to see that scholars from all over the world were enjoying their sweet dumplings and talking about how festivals were celebrated in their own cultures. As the scholarship grew, more and more scholars from places that weren't really represented previously joined the community. Following the Spring Festival event, more and more cultural celebrations began to take place in Rhodes House. I think one cannot really stress the importance of communication skills enough. My experience in Oxford has required me to interact with people from all over the world and from all these different backgrounds every single day. So even if you aren't planning to pursue a DPhil in Oxford, it will still be really useful for you to practice your communication skills. I hope that Small Talk Circles is helping you to learn to do this, and I sincerely thank Phil for creating this opportunity for me and other Hong Kong University students. So before Mr. Bernard Chan delivers his keynote speech, I would really like to wish STC a happy 10th anniversary and everyone who's listening a very happy and prosperous new year.
Hi everyone, this is Bernard Chan. First, I'd like to congratulate Small Talk Circle for your 10th anniversary. I've been involved with STC for quite many years, and I know the founder, Philip Leung, for more than a decade. So I want to congratulate him for his effort in putting Small Talk Circle together to benefit our young students and for the future. Small Talk Circle is about connecting people together, connecting not only students to their mentors, but also providing them opportunities and exposures to the real world, the professional world. So I want to congratulate Philip for his vision in putting Small Talk Circle together. You know, there has been so much talk about the future of Hong Kong. You know, is Hong Kong still of any use to the mainland China? Or are we being marginalized? I can understand why that, you know, we feel uneasy about our positioning, because China has done so amazingly well in the last 40 years in basically lifting hundreds of millions of people from poverty and creating something like 300 million middle-class Chinese now in China. And that 300 million middle-class Chinese today would want better access to healthcare, better access to educations, better access to wealth management products. Basically, they want the same thing that we want, except their numbers are so much bigger than ours. So they are competing with us in these resources. Of course, those 300 million, some of them will find these products they need onshore in the mainland. But many are also purchasing these products offshore in Hong Kong, in US, in the UK, Europe, anywhere, because they have choices now. They have the means, they have the resources, then they're competing with us. And that's probably the one reason why there has been some resentment or hostility towards mainland Chinese in Hong Kong over the last 1 or 2 decades, because as the economy continues to integrate, China is integrating with Hong Kong both economically and socially. Not politically, because we have one country, two systems. But then increasingly, when you are integrating so fast economically and socially, it bounds to have issues that triggers political differences. A case in point is high-speed rail. The construction of the high-speed rail to the business community in Hong Kong is obviously very welcoming. It allows business access between the two places. It also allows people, tourists from China, to have faster and easier access to Hong Kong. So for the business community, it was, you know, a very welcoming decision. However, it did trigger some political controversy, because, when the train passed the territory of Hong Kong, but yet reached the station. So if a crime to occur on the train, which jurisdiction does it apply? Because since the train hasn't arrived to the destination, technically speaking, it's still on Chinese soil. But then the train have already actually passed the Hong Kong territory. So how do we address that kind of issues? So these types of controversy continue to arise as our two economies continue to integrate, apart from integrating, we're also competing. Hong Kong is the regional aviation hub. We are allowed to be a regional hub because under one country, two systems, Hong Kong can negotiate our own air traffic rights with other destinations. Or I should say, China allow Hong Kong to have that ability to negotiate separately. Whereas from the rest of China, they even have to compete within cities. So Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, they have to compete among their own cities about who gets to fly to what destination in the US. So Hong Kong has a clear advantage in that sense. But you can imagine our regional cities, our regional partners in cities, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, they have even as big a demand or even bigger demand than Hong Kong for these international flights. So they obviously want the exact same thing that we want too. So there are competitions, that say 20 years ago, that would not have happened. And you can bet these competition will continue as Chinese economy continue to do well, Chinese people continue to do well. And these sort of issues will continue to make Hong Kong people nervous. It's perfectly normal for our young students or young graduates to feel a bit lost, to ask the question whether Hong Kong can remain relevant. Well, let me just assure you, this is not just your problem. It is my problem too. My company needs to continue to find my niche to stay competitive as well. And this is a global phenomenon. It's not just Hong Kong. And the only way that Hong Kong can remain competitive, Hong Kong people can remain competitive and relevant, is for us to stay always ahead of the game. And how do you do that? Well, I always find Hong Kong a middleman. It always has been a middleman. Throughout the many decades that I recall, in the 70s, 80s, Hong Kong manufacturers took advantage of the cheap labor in China and moved their factory base to China. Now, that model may not work anymore because we've been outpriced. Unless you raise your value chain, so unless you're really on the high end, I think factories will have to relocate to even somewhere else. But that has been replaced by our professional services provided by our different constituencies in Hong Kong, from accountancy, legal sectors to financial sector and so on. So we were able to always continue to play a role for China. But Chinese professionals are also increasingly now rising up the rank. They are just as good as ours too. So can Hong Kong continue to stay ahead? Can Hong Kong people stay ahead? I believe so, but it's really up to us to decide that. Many people ask me, what's going to happen to Hong Kong after 2047? This is now increasingly a topic for discussion. I don't think anyone knows the answer. But I do know, or I should say I'm guessing, by 2047, whoever the leader then in China, if he or she decided to extend Hong Kong 50 years unchanged, to whatever, to extend it indefinitely, he or she has to go in front of 1.4 billion people in China to explain to them why this special privilege, this special status of one country, two systems given to Hong Kong should continue, especially if it's just for the benefit and interest of the 7.8 or 8 million people of Hong Kong people. But I just don't see how whoever the leader then can make that argument. Why only the 7-8 million Hong Kong people can enjoy this benefit and not the rest of the 1.4 billion people? I just don't see how. Does that mean that I think by 2047, that's the end of the one country, two systems? No. The basic law never said 2047 is the end date. It only mentioned that 50 years unchanged of the capitalist model. I actually still believe the one country, two system can go beyond 2047, but only if Hong Kong can serve a purpose to China. In other words, the one country, two system is not just to serve the interests of the 7.8 million people. It has to serve the interests of the entire 1.4 billion people. How? We are doing that already. Hong Kong has always been purposeful to China. We always were able to stay ahead and continue to find ourselves useful. Today, Hong Kong is remain to be a gateway for China to the world. But the question is, can we continue to maintain that edge for the next 20 years, given how China has done so well in the last 40 years? People are guessing that it will be in no time China would not need Hong Kong. Well, it may be the case, but if we can always stay ahead and we can always find ourselves useful, I think we still get a shot to ask for an extension of that. Because if Hong Kong continue to do so well for China, why would China want to change it? I can imagine they will only want to continue. But then the question is, do we or are we able to stay ahead? That's the real challenge. So when some young people tells me that they don't want anything to do with China, they want less of China because they're afraid of China and they want to preserve the one country, two system, and they want nothing to do with them. But I'm sorry, that is exactly the opposite of what you should do. Because the less you want to do with China, the less you're able to offer anything to China, then by 2047, you're just one country because you offer nothing better. And why would the rest of 1.4 billion people would agree to give Hong Kong that special status? The only way I think that the two system can continue is we continue to serve a purpose to the entire nation, the 1.4 billion people, that we can argue for this special status to remain. So rather than doing less of China, we should do more with China. You should do more with China. When I say do more, meaning you should at least try to understand the market You have to understand their needs. But not only you need to understand their needs, you also need to know how we can meet those needs. It could be from Hong Kong, it could be from elsewhere. So we should not only be just knowing one place, one country. We should know not just China, but we should also know the region, if not global. That's what Hong Kong is good at. Hong Kong is very good at connecting all the dots. And we need to stay ahead of that game. You know, when people talk about Greater Bay Area, honestly, even I don't think I'm gonna do well. Because yes, I've been to Guangzhou, I've been to Shenzhen, and I've been to Guangzhou. I've been there, but it doesn't mean I actually understand the market, understand their needs. I'm in the business of financial services and insurance. I need distribution channels. I have channels in Hong Kong, but I have zip channels in China. So either I have to build that channels, or I have to find a local partners to help me to build the channels. So it requires me to understand the market. No, nothing will come to me for free. I have to invest the time and money, of course, to expand my reach. So I would encourage every one of you to take the opportunities to go and find out more, to learn about these places, whether it's from Greater Bay Area or to the region, ASEAN, Asia. It's only when we were able to stay always on top of the game and ahead of the game that we can keep Hong Kong remaining competitive and relevant. So Small Talk Circle is just your first step. It allows you to expand that exposure of yours. Every exposure is a step closer to success. So I would encourage you to continue to take advantage of these amazing opportunities and platforms put forward by people like, Philip Leung, making sure you take those steps. I truly believe that the opportunities remain to be plenty, but it requires us to have that change of attitude. We're no longer going to be the only financial center in this side of the world. There will be many more financial centers rising to compete with us. But so long that we are staying ahead of the game, and with the special status of the two systems, with the legal system that we have in place, I still believe we can stay ahead, provided we as the people has that attitude to willing to try, to learn, and not to give up. So much lecture for me. I don't want to bore you any further. I just want to congratulate Small Talk Circle for your vision, and for those of you who participate in Small Talk Circles. You have to make the right choice. Take the first step, and please continue. So I look forward to meeting you all in person one day. I hope the pandemic will be under control towards later part of this year, and we can get back to meeting each other in person soon. So thank you. Happy birthday, Small Talk Circle.